from the vault, high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Thanks, Father Rob. And yes, we are Talking Catholic. I'm Pete Sanchez, joined, as always, by my trusty companion, my Sancho Panza to my Don Quixote.
I don't know how I feel about being the Sancho in this this grouping, but all right. But you know what? I was thinking about this today. Before we go any further, can we remind everyone to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and more importantly, leave a review and give us 5 stars on iTunes and all the other podcast apparati that are out there, simply because we always forget to ask people to do that. And, we'd like to appear in more search engines. And the only way that'll happen is if people rank us and review us and give us stars. So if you would be so kind, remember, we don't do this for vanity. It's not the Pete and Mike show. We just want to make sure that the stories that we're getting that are part of the podcast that go out to a broader audience, and the only way that can happen is if people know that the podcast exists. I agree.
Yeah. I could have said it better, Mike. Just to contribute to the new evangelization, which we've been trying to do for the past almost 2 years now.
Yeah. Well, let's not give us too much credit. 1.5 years. But I love this podcast. I love doing this podcast because it's one of the few opportunities we have to really delve into a subject that isn't just a little soundbite, isn't some little social media graphic that runs past our eyes for a fleeting moment or two. You can actually sit down and listen to these stories of people who, are in their own ways living the faith, and more importantly, promoting the faith around us, even if it's not necessarily an active promotion. We have a lot of people. We invite people on all the time who don't necessarily have something to pitch to us. They just have a great story that we want people to be aware of. So if you haven't yet given us a review or given us 5 stars, and remember, we're not greedy. You want to give us 4 stars, that's fine. But 5 stars is nice, though. But just so we show up on particularly the Apple Podcasts rating system, it would behoove you, and it would behoove the Catholic Church in South Jersey if that happened.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mike.
Sure.
And do it, everybody. That will be a great help to us and to what we're trying to do, what we're trying to complete here, and you. So, Mike, we got events coming up. Thursday, July 5th it's ongoing now until August 16th. Mm-hmm. This is the Art on the Mall that we've been talking about the past couple of weeks. And you and I are going to be there at the open house next week.
That's right. People can come and hang out with us and by all means criticize us for the quality of our podcast. But more importantly, come meet the artists at the exhibition, meet some of the art teachers that are going to be there. And it's a really a lovely display, and there's never not a good reason to go to Cape May in the middle of the week. There's never not a good reason to do it any day of the week, come summer or winter. But I'm already looking forward to wherever it is I'm going to eat that evening.
I think I'm just excited. I don't think I've been to Cape May in a while, so it's just see this work, see paintings, see sculptures, I believe.
I don't think it's sculptures. It was described to me as 3D displays.
3D displays, all by our young church.
Yep.
Young, very talented young artists. This is going to be at Our Lady Star of the Sea Church in Cape May, one of the most beautiful historic churches in South Jersey. It's on the Washington Street Mall, 525 Washington Street in Cape May. So come on out. It's going on until August 16th.
And it's open all day long. As long as the church is open, the thing is the exhibition is opened on the lower level of the church.
And you can take a tour of the shore this summer from Cape May a few days later, or go to Atlantic City on August 3rd. It's a Friday. Light the Fire, a night of prayer, praise, and street evangelization at St. Michael's Church, 10 North Mississippi Avenue. This got rave reviews from the people who I know who went to this. It's led by the CFR sisters, the Franciscan Sisters of the Renewal. The night begins 6:15 with Mass and ends with night prayer at 9:30. In between, it'll include going out in teams in the streets to invite people. Do you want to come into church? So I'm excited for this. I will be there.
Yeah, and that's
It's
another
actually-
that's another event where we'll both be there, as a matter of fact, because I've volunteered to take photos. So
Wonderful.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't been around the sisters in far too long, the faith crack of our diocese, and I am very much looking forward to them bringing me into their vortex again and inspiring me. I will admit that I've been a bit off the last couple of weeks. Even people around the diocese have noticed that I'm not my usual cheerful self, and I have a feeling that an influx of the sisters' energy and spirit might be just what I'm in need of.
It'll be good medicine for you, Mike.
It will be good medicine.
They were good medicine for me. I was at an event on Sunday with the bishop in Atlantic City, and I saw 2 of the 4. 50% of them. Even 50% is awesome.
Yes.
They're just wonderful, just lights, and so happy that they're here in South Jersey. So
and if you're looking for more, I don't think it might be the next edition of the Star Herald. No, not the next edition of the Star. Maybe 2 from now. We'll have our story on their street evangelization, which is really amazing. Did we talk about it much on the last podcast, Pete?
We might have said just that it's going on.
Yeah, it's a cool time. I mean, they literally go out into the streets and evangelize to people and bring them back to St. Michael's Church in Atlantic City.
Yeah,
and it's something that for a lot of Catholics nowadays, I think would be sort of an almost unheard of thing to do. But this is something that the sisters have done in New York City with some regularity and with great success. So Atlantic City being the unique nature that it is, this is a great opportunity for them to just really go out and meet people on the street and ask them to pray with them. I mean, it's such a simple concept, but just something we don't see on a regular basis anymore.
No, and I think they might even go as far as the boardwalk.
They do.
Understand.
They go from the outlets to the boardwalk, I'm told. Yeah.
So this come on out. It's going to be August 3rd, starting at 6:15 on Friday. And also, if you cannot make August 3rd, it will be September 7th as well. The first Fridays of next month and September. So come out, just come out and light the fire with the CFR sisters and Atlantic City. And then, Mike, we got coming up also in Atlantic City, the Wedding of the Sea, August 15th. You and I have talked about this extensively. I guess past podcasts.
We have. It's probably the thing we've talked about on the podcast more than anything else, just because we're such fans of it.
We are. It's celebrating the Mass of the Assumption of Mary. Bishop Dennis Sullivan celebrating Mass. I believe it's at noon, right?
I think so, yeah.
And Boardwalk Hall in the Adrian Phillips Ballroom. And then after that, my favorite part of it, not only the Mass, but the procession to the surf, where the bishop will throw a wreath. And I don't know if he throws a ring into the river.
No,
he throws a wreath.
He throws in a ring of flowers into the story originates, and there's some debate as to where, but oftentimes given to the Bishop of Venice, I believe, on a boat in the midst of a storm that was coming across some body of water around Venice, and in an effort to calm the storm, he threw his ring into the water, and it calmed the storm. And it's always been, today particularly, it is now considered a ceremony that brings together the marriage of the city and the sea. So much of these shore towns is predicated on the sea, either as fisheries or for vacation times or lounging or just, enjoying the surf. So it's a good opportunity to bless the sea and ask that it continue to look after the shore communities. We do it in Wildwood. We also do it in Atlantic City, and a number of the shore communities do it as well. Avalon, yeah, sure. So it's a great event, and everyone keeps waiting to see because you got to. Bishop actually kind of goes out there a little bit, and he goes through the breakers, and he's in a lifeguard boat, and those things really tip up on those days. And I think what everyone comes to see is whether or not Bishop is going to get jettisoned in the ocean. However, 5 years in, and he hasn't left the boat yet, so we'll see.
I think we've covered that topic as well too. I think whenever we talk about the Wedding of the Sea, it's always about the bishop. Is he gonna
He comes out very wet, one way or the other. Whether he gets thrown into the ocean or not,
We're creating suspense.
he does not wear his Class A's, I think, Class A cassock into the
No,
ocean.
it's funny. I actually was joking with a friend. I just got a book called The Boat Builder about how this guy who's he's kind of he's struggling with addictions, and he decides to build a boat to calm himself. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if we had somebody build a custom boat for the bishop?
Oh, that's an idea.
You know, if any, you know, that would be very
As opposed
cool.
to using one of the lifeguard rafts?
I don't
Lifeguard
know.
boats?
It would be neat if the bishop had his own personal boat. I mean, the lifeguards, of course, would go in with him.
Mm-hmm.
But how cool would that be? The bishop's boat that would, like, I don't know if the seminarians or the priests would carry it to the water. I'm being serious. I think
You
that
are
would be
very
awesome.
old school in your thinking about these things, because that is right out. And I'm not criticizing. That is right out of like 1700s, 1600s, 1800s, sort of ecclesiastical. I don't know, honorifics maybe.
Yeah, what we
I
make
like that.
from,
It's kind of a cool concept.
I think, you know, what we can make from God's hands to give glory to him.
But
I don't know.
As a PR guy, I appreciate the fact that the lifeguards get a little bit of benefit of seeing their lifeguard boats ferrying
That's
out
true.
a member of the church.
We
into
wouldn't
the,
want to put them off.
No,
when they
last thing I
see-
want is Bishop to get launched out and them going, "Hey, you didn't want to use our lifeguard boats. You're on your own from here, buddy."
Maybe we can find some lifeguards to do it for. Maybe we can find some boat building like lifeguards.
Well, keep thinking outside the box, Pete. But anyway, no, yeah, it's good. So I do hope people will come, and there'll be another event. Well, are you going to be there for both, or I think
I'm hoping to be there on the 15th, and it's neat because after the mass and after the procession to the sea on the boardwalk, from the boardwalk to the water, there will be a festival at St. Michael's, 10 North Mississippi Avenue. There'll be vendors, Italian, Hispanic,
basically
local vendors, the Ducktown Tavern.
yeah, a lot of the restaurants in the area will all have tables out where they'll be selling their wares, and there are great restaurants in the Ducktown area. So it's when I went last year, I was not hurting for good food.
No, I'm trying to. I know.
And it's once again in the CFR Sisters' backyard, so
Yeah.
you'll get another dose of Sisters of our,
Yeah.
my love.
Spend your summers at the shore. Well, Mike, I think it's time to transition to the guest.
I think that's a great idea.
Turn it
We've made
over to him.
We've made him wait long enough.
I know.
When we're very honored, I believe it's his first interview since being named rector of Camden Catholic High School. So congratulations and welcome, Father Joe Capella.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Two of my favorite people in the diocese, Peter and Michael. It's true.
Thank you. That's so
and
good to hear.
yeah, I'm very honored and excited to be a part of the podcasts today because I, of course, hear them and have experienced them from the listener end.
Mm-hmm.
So now I get to be here in this very interesting studio.
Yeah, that's right, folks. We're in the vault again. Or back in the vault. But Pete has.
I hope we can get out.
Yeah, well, good luck. Sometimes. But Pete has
Okay.
been very good to put up.
I noticed.
He's adding some good artwork on the walls. So
Very good, Peter.
we're trying to make it a little less dire than it usually looks.
Yes, no,
Trying
very
to-
interesting.
Trying to make it homey.
As homey as a vault could be.
Exactly.
That's
That's
true.
the thing. It
Yes.
was it
Vault,
kind of
sweet vault.
Yes.
cold vault. We want to heat it up, make it trying to make it more comforting, more just
Yeah,
more
more
appealing.
spiritual.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
more
great.
spiritual. Thank you, Mike.
That's
Yeah,
it.
no,
That's-
really, very good. And again, thanks so much for this invitation.
No.
I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, that's great. And so now that you're wearing the mantle of rector, the
Yes.
head of Camden Catholic, have you
Right.
during your what should have been your summer vacation? Are
That's
you
right.
are you already back in the
That's
school
true.
swing?
Yes, been back in the school swing. I finished 2 years at Camden Catholic as the director of Catholic Identity, and I had been in Catholic education some years ago when I was with the religious community here in the diocese, and then was in parochial work for a number of years, probably about 12 years, I think, in a parish setting. And then 2 years ago, Bishop Sullivan asked if I would go back into Catholic education at Camden Catholic High School as the director of Catholic Identity. And I jumped at the chance because I really enjoyed, I think, Catholic education is so critical and so important to evangelization, to our life, the church, and especially our young church. And so 2 years there. And then this summer, Bishop Sullivan decided to make some changes at the school and asked if I would assume the office of rector. So I said yes, I would, even though you're right, Michael, it cut into personal time. Talk about shore time. It cut into my shore time, but that's okay, because it's I respect him tremendously. He's a great supporter of Catholic education, so whatever I can do, I'm happy to do.
Yeah.
Hey, just for the distinction, what a rector as opposed to a director or a president or principal, what is that exactly?
Okay, great question. Typically, the term rector is more European than it is used in the United States, but it does mean the same thing in both instances. Essentially, a rector is the sort of head administrator of a faith-based institution, in our case, of course, a Catholic Christian institution, a high school of Camden Catholic. And the rector's job would be, first and foremost, to help promote and ensure and oversee the faith mission of the school. That is his main directive and main job, as where the president may be more with enrollment, marketing, the financial aspect of the school, recruitment of students, and aspects such as that. Of course, the principal would deal with the academics, but the rector would primarily help promote the spiritual aspect of the school, along with the academic and the other tasks as well. So in my case, I'm there to help support both the president and the principal, which we have a president and principal, very fine people, by the way, and the other administrators and all the teachers and staff of the school. So it is a responsibility, but it's also a great opportunity.
Yeah. And not something you're unfamiliar with.
Correct. That's right.
You were the rector of Bishop Eustace Preparatory School.
That is correct.
I was.
Yes, I was. I was a teacher there first and chaplain, and then assumed that position there for some years before I entered the Diocese of Camden. And I was at Bishop Eustace because I'm born and raised in the Diocese of Camden. My home parish was staffed by the same religious community as staffs Bishop Eustace Preparatory School. So that's how I got to know that community and joined them, was trained and ordained a priest for them. But believe it or not, I spent the first 16 years of my priesthood, about 14 of those 16 years were spent here in the Diocese of Camden as a member of the religious order, but within our ministries here within the Diocese of Camden. So I've always had a great relationship with the diocese, and it is my home. So,
And you were the Order of the Society of the Catholic Apostolate, or the Palatines.
Correct. Yes, the word Palatine comes from Saint Vincent Pallotti, and Saint Vincent Pallotti was canonized by John the 23rd as one of the patron saints of Vatican II. Vatican II being a wonderful movement in our church in the 60s, where, as we say, the windows of the church were opened. And Vincent Pallotti in the 19th century had many similar ideas for evangelization and for the involvement of all of the baptized women and men of the church, not only just clerics and vowed religious, but his belief was that every baptized Catholic should be called to be an apostle and an evangelizer. So that's the main charism meaning the main focus of the Order of Palatines. But canonically, that means officially in the church, we are known as the Society of the Catholic Apostolate. So yes, I was a member of that, and then joined the diocese so that I could stay sort of close to home, and have been in parochial ministry since my time in the diocese, and as I said, 2 years ago began at Camden Catholic High School.
And just sort of going back to your history, you are born and raised in one of my favorite towns in New Jersey.
The blueberry capital of the world.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. Beautiful, bucolic Hammonton,
Yes.
New Jersey. The irony being, I'm allergic to blueberries.
Oh,
And yet-
really?
yeah,
Are you?
It's terrible. And blueberries everywhere.
I've never heard of anybody.
Well, I'm the only one that I'm aware of. But
Seriously,
I had
I've
a
never heard of
reaction.
it.
Yeah, I had a
Really?
reaction when I was 5 years old. and just never had them ever since. Now, in the years that followed, my mom has occasionally wondered, gee, I wonder maybe if you were allergic to DDT, because that was the mid-'70s, early 70s.
That's right.
It could have been that I had a reaction to, but we all decided better not to risk it.
Safe than sorry. You're right.
Correctly.
You're right.
But I love it. It's a great place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's well, we're just coming off the Our Lady of Mount Carmel Festival, which
tremendous.
You were featured in all of the artwork that came out of it. Because
how do you like that?
the Star Herald had photographs of you. The Alexia
right.
Press had photographs of you. But it's such a great event,
Right.
and it's 143 years.
That
I
is
think?
correct, without missing a year.
Yeah,
Tremendous.
But in addition, I mean, 143 years of, as far as I can tell, no waning of it. Every time you go, it is a great event, like the actual festival itself. Tons of food vendors, tons of people,
Right.
tons of everything. And even, we were talking about how it goes on, the final mass is always on the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, which this year was on an extraordinarily hot and humid Monday,
it was.
when you would not expect much of a procession to follow it, and yet, particularly looking at the artwork, it had a great turnout.
It did.
So that's something to be said. But it's sort of just talking about Hammonton a little bit, because we have talked about it a lot, but we've never talked about it with someone who was born and raised in Hammonton. What was it like for you to grow up in a community like that?
Oh, it's a tremendous community. Growing up there, everyone knows everyone, or you are related somehow. Very Italian American community. In fact, at one point, up until about 5 or 6 years ago, based on its population, its percentage of Italian Americans, self-identified Italian Americans in the census, it was the most Italian town or city. It is a town, but in the United States.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, up until about, as I say, about 5 years ago. So it was a tremendous place to grow up. Still is a tremendous place to live.
Yeah.
Again, an atmosphere very steeped in the Italian culture, but also very welcoming throughout the years to all different groups. That's how the Italians got there. They came there originally as farmers.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't found Hammonton, but they were brought in to be farm labor, and eventually stayed, married, had families, and so that's the history. And Our Lady of Mount Carmel was the patroness of their town in Italy, where most of the Italian immigrants lived, and they came from this one particular region or area in Italy. And so on July the 16th, which is her feast day, in Hammonton, they would take an image of Our Lady of Mount Carmel to each of the farms, and they would ask her intercession. They would ask God's blessings through her intercession. They would give thanks to God through her for their safe arrival, and just that she watch over them and protect them in their labors and in their produce and their production and their farming. And if you go to a farm on Middle Road, which is off of Route 30, White Horse Pike in Hammonton, you'll see in the middle of this farm this huge granite monument, because that's the original location of where it started. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So every year at 7 a.m., and by the way, I'm the chaplain for the Society of Our Lady of Mount Carmel that sponsors it. So another great connection there. We go out there and we pray. And we start the festival. We pray for all of the pilgrims who will be there that day, pray in thanksgiving. And it's a great day.
It's a great town and a great culture. I have a number of friends who either married into the town or were born and raised in the town, and I still love going back. I also, when I was a reporter, I covered a lot of elections in Hammonton. And
okay.
Boy, were they fun!
Yeah,
that was small town politics at its best.
And they even started their own political party.
Yes, I do.
Right? The only one in New Jersey. Yes. So they have
Hammonton first.
Hammonton first. They just decided, no, we'll do our own thing, and they started their own political party. So
it's for anyone who's interested in moving into a unique town. It has, aside from my love of Penza pies and the Red Barn, which I talk about ad nauseum on the podcast. The other favorite thing I ever covered as a photographer was the annual giant provolone cutting at Bagliani's Market every year. And I had never been to one before. I mean, Pete, a provolone so huge that it would not fit in the vault. I mean, it's thousands of pounds. It's enormous.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it takes a couple of guys to bring it. It takes more than a couple of guys to bring it in. But it takes a couple of guys to cut it. And when they have the cutting, I mean, the place is filled for people to get the first cuttings off this enormous provolone. The next time they have it, I'll have to let you know what it is.
They do it every year?
Yeah, annually as far as I know, yeah.
Yeah.
That is...
Yeah. You don't want to you don't want to mess around with your provolone. So you go when it's.
No, you don't.
You know, should I bring roast pork for that then? For the
sure.
Well, isn't
although
that
you know what?
thing?
Typically, I mean, when they cut it off, I just eat it. Right
yeah,
off.
I mean,
yeah.
One of my favorite sandwiches is the roast pork and provolone. That's I don't know.
Great food there. I've always said they should do a reality show of Hammonton. Because the people are we have our characters there. It's a great, and very faithful people.
Yes.
Very Catholic, very faithful. A very large Mexican presence has grown over the years. And by the way, great Mexican restaurants and wonderful people. And they now have started settling in and become great citizens of the town. So again, it's just a great place. And the parish is still, St. Mary of Mount Carmel Parish, and still very much the social, cultural, as well as religious center of so much of what goes on there. So, and when you talk to people from there and you'll say, well, there's not much going on here. Do you ever think of moving out or whatever? And they'll look at you and say, well, why would I want to do that? I mean, they just...
It's such a nice town. And we've come to think we've had a few interviews from Hammontonians. But although I think you were our first born and raised, they were all immigrated in. But Kim Pizotsky,
the minister.
Oh, right.
Mary Mount Carmel.
Yes.
Yeah, and she's great. She's very pleased with her.
She and her husband were instrumental in the festival.
Yes, that's
I
right.
saw them last night, and they were talking about all the work and just. That's the thing too, the dedication of the people who help out.
Yes.
I know I talked to you last year. I was there for a day, and I interviewed a guy who started there as a little boy. His parents would take him, and now he was running things. He was running one of the booths making, I think, meatball sandwiches. And just there, and he was there early in the morning at 10 a.m. getting ready for. Yeah. It's just such a fun carnival-like atmosphere.
Yeah, there are people who use their vacation time from their jobs, not to go on vacation, but to work that feast for that week. And they do it in honor of Our Lady. They do it in honor of their ancestors, in gratitude for the ability to raise their families there and to live their faith. And it really is very inspirational. I mean, there's the whole cultural aspect of it, the social part of it, as you say, the food, the carnival, all of that. But, I mean, having Mass there, listening to confessions, offering that sacrament, very, very powerful. Yeah, I can tell you that. Pilgrims coming there. Some people, one lady, 102 years old from South Philadelphia, and she's come there since she was 1 year old because her mother brought her. She almost died as an infant. And her mother made her promise when her mom died that she would continue to go there. Wow. This woman is now 102, and her grandchildren bring her. Very frail, of course, very very ill now. But that's the kind of faith you hear.
You're very much sort of the personification of that as well. Someone who grew up in that town, was obviously affected by the Palatines that were in that parish, and decided to follow in their footsteps. I mean, as a young man, sort of. I mean, what was it that really sort of brought you to that decision?
Yeah, Michael. You know what? I always say that vocations really, of course, are a gift from God, but they really are fostered in the home. I always say that the hand that rocks the cradle moves the world. And what I mean by that is really we receive our vocation at home. We learn what God's love is about from our family life. And my vocation was fostered and supported by my parents, my grandparents, my extended family. And the priests of the parish were very much a part of our family, extended family, if you want to put it that way. So they were at our homes. They were part of our family celebrations. Just a great relationship. And so for me, it was just seeing these men, and some of them immigrants themselves from Italy. I can remember one of the priests when I was an altar server growing up. He had recently come from Italy and had a very difficult time with the language. And I could remember listening to him read the newspaper out loud while looking in the mirror just to practice his English. And he would get us altar boys together and tell us, now listen to me, boys, and tell me if I'm pronouncing the words correctly. So all for evangelization, all for serving the people. And, that dedication, you don't get that in a flyer or, from a program. Not that those things aren't important, but it's the lived experience. When a young person can look at a priest and say, I don't know what he does or how he does it or how you get there, but that's what I want to do. Yeah. That's what so my personal story was very much fostered, my vocation very much fostered in that way.
Oh, that's great.
You were ordained a Palatine in your home parish. That
is correct. Thus far, every sacrament I've received in that church.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was baptized there, First Communion, confirmation, my ordination there, and so I think that's all I got. Yeah, so far. So and I'll probably finish up there. That's right.
Wow,
that's
impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of you have your vocation and you move through and you become a Palatine, and then you find out. Did you have an idea that you were going to end up staying local, or could it have been anywhere?
Actually, we could have been anywhere where the order is stationed, and the particular province, which is sort of a geographical area of a particular religious community, for the Palatines, that province was the East Coast. So I knew anywhere between, say, Brooklyn down the East Coast. And I was very interested in the spirituality of St. Vincent de Paul, of course, being very attracted by the example of the priests and the brothers of the Palatines. But they also were missionaries, and I sort of always looked towards that as well. And when I was in seminary, the Palatines were expanding down into Mexico and other areas. So while in seminary, I was asked if I would be interested in that. And so that's how I learned Spanish. And in the summers, learned the culture. And my plan was to actually be a missionary at some point. Now, God's plans were were different for me, and I don't think I've ever made it out of New Jersey, but out of South Jersey, as a matter of fact. But that's fine, because that's where apparently God has wanted me.
And you and I first met. I've said before that that in my job as a PR guy, you kind of judge people as to who would you want in a foxhole with you. So in a crisis situation, it's like, who do you want there with you? Well, there was a bit of a crisis situation at one of the parish that you were at last.
Right.
It had been vandalized,
yes.
And I'd only been with the diocese for a few months at that point. And so I went out to give you a hand because it had made it into the media. And it was a great experience for me because you handled it so effortlessly, so beautifully. You were so honest in the way you took the concerns of parishioners, took the questions of the media, and you did it beautifully. And then prayed for the person and asked for prayers for the person who had committed this terrible act against the church.
Yeah.
And I really think people were very much touched by that. And I will tell you, and I'm sure I've told you this in the past, but the media came up to me afterwards and said how great it was to work with you. And I can't say that happens regularly from I get compliments from the media. So
Gee, I'm surprised.
You're on a very short list.
Wow.
So that's why when I found out that you were going to be named rector of the school, I was very pleased about that too, because we live in a very media savvy world now. So being comfortable talking with the media is something we pretty much all have to do at some point. And you seem to do it so effortlessly. Do you think it comes from? I mean, what do you think makes you so comfortable when
that's a good
you're
question.
in front of a microphone?
You know what? I think first of all, the Catholic Church has been media savvy since day one. I mean, I really believe that in many ways, because the good news, announcing the good news, preaching the good news from the time of the early church of Christ himself. I mean, I think we've sort of been groundbreakers in that area.
That's a good way to put it.
And even in modern media, if you look at the first televangelists, if you want to say, or the first modern media people, social media people, were from, in many respects, from the Catholic Church. Think of Fulton Sheen. Right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Archbishop Fulton Sheen,
Mm-hmm.
and even before that. In fact, I think, and correct me please if I'm wrong, one of the very first televised masses was from Haddonfield, New Jersey, Christ the King Parish.
You know what? I'll have to look into that.
I think it was
I think you might be right.
1941. There's a plaque in the vestibule of the church.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I think personally, that's part of, I identify with that wider universal Catholic call to preach and to teach. And so I think a level of comfort comes, from that, just being part of that. And then the big part of it, I do think that God gives all of us whatever we need, when we need it, for whatever reason He needs it.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe a lot of it is just God's grace. So,
I've on this podcast I've often mentioned being a jaded PR guy, and
Really?
yeah, a few times. But I've maybe I'm finally fully integrating into the diocese, but I am now being more open to the idea of the Holy Spirit's effect on us, and particularly in moments of crises. And if you remain open to the guiding hand of God, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, that you can make it through these situations. And I will say that I even as a cradle Catholic, that was something I had difficulty conceptualizing, and then it was something that was basically trained out of me as a PR guy, which was never leave anything to chance, never assume anything will go your way. Always assume that you have to have the answers for everything and whatever will happen. Which I still that's how I do my job, so that's
sure,
I still follow that mindset. But I am getting more comfortable with the idea that all right, I may not know what's going on, but as long as I have an open mind and I'm willing to listen to the Holy Spirit, there's a chance I'm going to get through this.
yeah.
And I will tell you that in the 2.5 years I've been here, when anybody that I've worked with who has had that sort of same mentality, things go miraculously successful.
Yeah.
And so I'm now becoming an evangelist to that, and telling my own colleagues that, hey, listen, we got, not that you shouldn't worry, but be open. Know that there are things helping us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and using those gifts.
Yeah.
For example, your interests, your talents, your gifts. And I always tell people the only way that God won't use your life to build His kingdom and to proclaim His good news is if you withhold it from Him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you offer it, He'll use it and He'll take it.
Yeah.
And so, just put it at His disposal, at God's disposal, and it will be used for His greater honor and glory. I believe that.
And I think, too, if we really know the faith, if we really embrace the joy, we can't help but share it with others.
Yes,
and
you're
not
right, Pete.
keep
That's
it under
great.
a bushel basket,
Yeah.
as the Scripture says.
Great point. That's true, the joy.
And I've commented several times, Pete, that you do that. I'm actually in awe of you. I mean, no, but I will. Well, when I see your social media posts, I am stunned as a person, as a millennial-ish in his mid-30s, how quick you are to proclaim and point out and embrace, God's presence in your life, in the hopes that, and I assume that you post these things on social media in the hopes that people will also find, joy and salvation and peace in reading those kinds of things. And I kind of wish, I always wish other people would do that, because, so often in social media, we see the trolls and the vitriol. And that's why it's nice to see somebody like Pete and a few other people I know who just really try to put out good news and good image. And you seem to do that as well, Father.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thank you.
have you had a bad day? Have you had a...
Yes.
Yep.
I don't think there's anybody alive, that hasn't had a few bad days. But again, even on those days, I may not have, received what I wanted, but I certainly think God has given me what I've needed at that moment. And just as you said before, you have to be open to that and to trust that. But Yeah, thank God. I don't know. I think gratitude is a choice. You know, it really is. I believe that. I've always thanked God for the grace that I've always seemed to been able to choose that. Of course, with His help. Some days it's been easier than others, but first of all, I am very comfortable in my own skin. That's again a grace, a gift from God.
True,
yeah, and I love my vocation. I mean, I'm ordained. Let's see. This past June was 29 years. And I still cannot believe that there are nights when I go to bed and I think, I can't believe I get to wake up tomorrow, God willing, and to be a priest. I mean, it still excites me to the point where it's almost like Christmas Eve. You know, you're a kid and it's like, oh, I can't believe tomorrow I get to get up and do that. So that's a grace. I mean, that's, and there are days when it's not been so good,
yeah, sure.
you know, but again, I learned that through the example of my parents and their vocation and other great, wonderful people. And yeah, it's, you have to love your life, love your vocation, and know that it's a gift from God until He asks for it back.
I'm curious. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, Father, if you don't mind, what were you going to ask, Mike?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, just kind of going back to your time at Bishop Eustace and now your time at Camden Catholic, did you find being around young people energized you?
Oh, absolutely.
Even more so?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
They're great comic relief. Sometimes they say, the problem with 16-year-olds is they act like they're 16,
Yeah, well,
right?
yeah,
Right?
true, yeah.
So sometimes they are a challenge, but I have found with young people that they're very, very sincere, and they will forgive many, many human foibles, except hypocrisy. They're very, very keen to pick up on it.
Yeah, they
Don't you think?
Yeah, I agree. They know when somebody's fake.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
They can sense that.
Yeah, and so they've always brought out the best in me. And yes, they're very energetic. They energize you. They're great to be around. And I remember when I was pastor, I made it a point, especially if I was having a rough day, to always go into the school.
Yeah.
Because you can't go in there, be with them, their innocence, the presence of God that is within and among them. You can't do that and come out unaffected in a positive way.
Yeah.
It's just so being with young people all day, being with the young church, and realizing how much influence we have on them. Spending that much time with them, but how much influence they've had on me. So they're just very open people, very loving people for the most part.
That's great to hear you say, a priest of 28 years still being affected and inspired by people so much younger than you. I think there's always a claim that as we get older, we become more cut off to being influenced, as if that would be a bad thing. And I've tried to remain as open as I can to being influenced by other people. Not necessarily that it alters my perspective, but certainly makes it easier for me to understand another person's perspective. And Pete, I mean, you're around people all the time. As your role as a reporter, do you find that those interviews have lasted beyond just the reporting?
Oh, completely. I'm of the firm belief that you can always learn something from anybody.
Yeah.
I have a phrase that I learned from actually this great Instagram, Dominic Monaghan, who played Mary.
In the Lord of the Rings.
In the Lord of the Rings.
Sure.
He uses a hashtag called "Be Curious." And I've kind of taken that mantra, be curious in your interactions with people. What can you learn from them? And that guides me here in this vault every week and guides me.
The vault.
I know it's
ominous.
It's a weird place to be inspired, but it's true.
Can we get a skylight or something?
Pete and I have said we have not had a bad podcast yet.
No,
even though we're in the cinder block room.
I think it's conducive to a good podcast.
Well, it does block out everything else.
Yeah,
maybe that's a thing. We're in silence, so the silence can breed thought and conversation. But Father, I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you. You told your story. You told a very personal story a few years ago back at a diocesan Lenten reflection. I don't know if you were there, Mike.
I don't think I was.
Would you mind just sharing a bit more of that? Because I think for our listeners, for me, it was extremely inspiring.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah. I was ordained when I was had just turned 29 years old, and I had been in the missions as a seminarian and for part of my diaconate time, and I was planning on staying in either Dominican Republic or Mexico, where we were going to have a foundation, our order. And anyway, somehow, some way, I became ill when I was down there. We worked in clinics, we worked in very remote areas, and wasn't the most sanitary of places, and the food and water and all that sort of thing. And I became ill down there, and I was misdiagnosed. They said that I had the flu, and so it kept getting worse and worse. And I happened, by God's grace, to be back here in the States, and I was just preparing to celebrate my first anniversary as a priest, and I became very, very ill. And long story short, they realized that I had been misdiagnosed, and it wasn't the flu, but it was hepatitis that had destroyed my liver. So I had to have an emergency liver transplant. And that was I became ill on the day of my first anniversary as a priest. Wow. And the next few years were health-wise were pretty rough. And as it turned out, from 1990 until 1997, I've had to have 3 separate liver transplants. Wow. Because they've either rejected or the hepatic artery thrombosed, which means the liver wasn't getting blood supply. And my first years as a priest were interesting. were kind of rough, and as a result of that, you take a lot of meds for anti-rejection, and so they have strong side effects. And as a result of that, I developed renal cell carcinoma, which is kidney cancer. So I had to have some years ago, actually 5 years ago, had a nephrectomy of the right kidney, and then also developed something called lymphoproliferative disorder, which is a cancer of the sort of a lymphoma, form of lymphoma. And that's all because, again, of the strong meds and the treatments you take as a transplant patient. So, I've had a lot of health issues. And I remember very long recovery from the transplants. And as a result of the toxins in the brain, lost the ability to walk for a while, lost my eyesight for a while, but praise God, everything, came back. But in many respects, I said I was in the seminary I entered after undergraduate, so I was in for about 7 years. But I think I learned really how to be a priest, being ill. Yeah. And in some respects, it sounds strange to say, but in some respects, it was one of the most positive things that has ever happened to me. And what I mean by that, I would never choose it. Yeah. I would never want to go through it. But what I mean by that, it's helped me to prioritize my life and my vocation. And it's also given me great empathy with other people.
And it's just how is that, you hear so much about when people go through sufferings, it brings them closer to the cross.
Yes.
And you feel that way?
Very, very much so. Very much so. And I mean, again, praise God, I was blessed with a wonderful family, and our faith life was very strong. I mean, I went through the same, when I entered college, it was my first time away from home, so I drifted from the church and, did a lot of knucklehead things that some young people tend to do. But again, it was planted within my heart and my soul. My faith was at a very early age, and it came back, and but so the cross was always real to me and prevalent, but you're right, Peter, it helped me see the cross in a whole different light, in a whole different way. But if anything, it also helped me see the resurrection more than the crucifixion. So it's a something. My experience is something from which I've drawn almost every day.
Really?
Yeah. Since then, yeah, in my priesthood, in my preaching, in my ministry, in my prayer life, personal life.
And how are you feeling? How are you feeling
Thank
today?
you. I feel well. I'm feeling well today. It goes up and down. I have to always have a lot of testing done because of the cancers, the carcinomas, and to make sure that the organ is functioning properly. So always getting stuck a lot for blood work and MRIs and CT scans and all this other kind of stuff. But you know what? Everybody has something. And this is just sort of the way, I've been asked to walk the road.
Well, you've certainly done incredible work in spite
you.
of your health issues, and I would tend to agree with you that that kind of a situation, there are usually two ways to handle it: become mired in it, or achieve because of it. And I would venture to say you've achieved. Despite and due to what you went through. But go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say, sorry, Mike. Father, just piggybacking on what he said, what Mike said, you're just such a calm amid the storm, thinking about you coming on it. And so many people who had you at Bishop Eustace, I'm friends with them. It's funny. I went to school with a girl who from Queen of Heaven, who went to Bishop Eustace. I went to St. Joe's Prep. But she was like, "Oh, I know Father Joe," and had all complimentary things to say to you about you.
Very
and
nice.
It's just such, it's amazing. You are one of the most inspirational priests here in this diocese.
Oh, thank you so much.
For me, and just one of the most calm. You give me strength.
And God gives us again what we need to be his instruments. It's just to be open to it. So that's why I say in many respects, I don't know that it was God's plan for me, but it was what happened to me in life. And certainly God has given me the opportunity to use it or not. And I'm just grateful to God that I can use it.
That's wonderful, and we certainly wish you a great deal of success at Camden Catholic, and we know the school will be, and the students will be better off with you there in this new role. And I know for a fact that they've loved you as a director of Catholic Identity those last 2 years, and I think they're going to like you even more as the rector, sort of overseeing all of the Catholic Identity for the entirety of the school. So that'll be great, and that's it. So thank you very much for coming. You are welcome anytime. By the way.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to both of you for what you do and for what you do for us in our diocese and something like this as well. And many blessings, prayers to all of your listeners and followers and anyone to whom God has put in reach of this podcast. So God bless.
Well, thank you very much. That's great
to
hear.
Father.
All right, listeners, this has been another edition of Talking Catholic, and thanks for joining us. And once again, don't forget to like us and review us and rate us and, basically do everything to help other people find us. So, Pete, you have a good rest of your weekend.
Thank you. And listeners, if I can just say, if you have any advice for decorating this vault, let us know. We have pictures. We have a few... I'd like to get a few statues in there. I don't know, just any advice for two guys who are trying to. Right?
Yeah, I'm going to be of no help whatsoever for this. Guys, I can figure out better ways of soundproofing it. And, but I rely on others for that kind of information.
Maybe, what warm colors, if we were to paint this one Friday, listeners, what color should we paint it? It's white right now, or cream. Would you say it's white or cream, Mike?
I think it's...
Used to be white.
I think it's yeah, exactly. I was going to say it seems to be colored in dead memories. Kind of what it is.
It's like a monastic cell.
It really is.
Actually, it is. It's a monastic cell, and you're doing great ministry through it. So
maybe
what are you doing? You're going to ruin the podcast by adding color to it. But no. It's some earth tones would look good in here, I think, and blues and greens and beiges. Nicer beiges and just faded white.
Okay, I'll wear my carpenter's pants next week. Mike, let's get to it.
Okay, and then we'll clean it up too, and maybe some vacuuming and some new tiles would not be such a terrible idea. Ceiling tiles would not be such a terrible idea.
any suggestions are much appreciated for how we can make this space warm, inviting, more comfortable.
Okay. And you also have to pay for it, too. So that's enough. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We've been
God
talking
bless.
Catholic.